Hey guys, welcome to Vegan Booty Talks. I have a guest with me, and today is not just entrepreneur, and it's not just a vegan person, and it's not just as normal athlete. It's something more interesting. So I'm really excited to introduce you my today guest. She is a helps vegan and ethical expert. Influence and entrepreneurs put their mission, movement, and message on the map so together they can change the world one book at a time. She is a keynote speaker, owner of the Vegan Publisher, the Vegan Owner Tell You Story publishing imprint, and the author of the bestseller, The Freedom Master Plan. Her mission is to amplify the voice of vegans and ethical leaders globally. So the screams to end the exploitation of animals, humans, and the environment will become too loud to be ignored. Welcome to the show, Mitali Deypurkaystha. I hope I pronounced your last name right.
It's good enough. It's good enough. How are you doing, Avrora? Thank you so much for having me.
I'm well. So can you please say your first and last name again? So I just want to make sure it's properly.
It's Mitali Deypurkaystha.
Deypurkaystha. I got it.
Yeah, and much more easier to be found as the Vegan Publisher. If you just Google the Vegan Publisher, you'll find me. You'll have a nightmare trying to spell my surname, so just don't bother doing that.
Awesome. Well, I have a couple of publishers here before in my podcast, but those were people who actually publish only their books. So you are doing something different. So before we get to the questions I got for you, could you please tell everyone, what do you do and where are you from?
Okay, so I'm based in the UK. I'm born in the UK. My heritage comes from India and Bangladesh. And I'm the Vegan Publisher. So I basically help vegan, plant-based or ethical entrepreneurs and experts become professionally published authors. Specifically, there is one reason. It's not just helping anybody who wants to write a book. My goal is to create an army of authorities, experts, thought leaders. So our voices, because you and I, we can talk about this, but you and I, we're already converted. We already know that we need to stop exploiting animals. We need to stop exploiting the planet. We need to stop exploiting other human beings. We just need to stop exploitation in general. We know that. Sadly, the majority of people out there, it's not that they want to exploit, they're just deaf to it. They just got their head in the sands and they're not thinking that all of this bad stuff is happening. And the more that I can put people in a position where they are heard, as in on podcasts, on stages, on TV shows, on radio shows, the more people like us infiltrate those places, the more the average person hears our message and wakes up and realizes they can't carry on with this exploitation unless we want to die out and have nowhere to live, basically. So I realized a few years ago that writing a book does that. It's kind of like a shortcut to becoming seen as an authority on a subject or becoming a thought leader. If you think about it, every time you go to a conference or an exhibition or a summit, or nearly every time the keynote speaker is introduced as author of such and such book, it's kind of like a shortcut. Everyone just kind of assumes that if you've written a book on a subject, you must really know what you're talking about. You really are an expert. So that is my goal. I help specifically it's entrepreneurs, experts, people who are doing advocates, people who are doing something to further the plant-based vegan or ethical movement and making their voices louder, because once they become a published author, they're taken even more seriously than they were previously.
Yeah, I love that idea. Yes. And one of the reasons I also want to write the book because of that, but also I think this amazing chance to actually have something right there available for everyone anytime. So as soon as I post content, it's right there. But we know that social media is tricky thing. And today we have something and tomorrow, let's say like happen couple days and which country was that? I think it's some South country. They block all the internet right now. I have some friends right there. Right. Yeah. So, and also the internet controlled by government. And that's what sometimes get tricky with that. So if you write the book and it's printed out, basically you can burn it, right? But most likely it's going to be on a shelf for years and years and years. So that's also amazing to mention, right? If you have something like that, like a physical book, this is what stick with you, and you can give it to next generations and other people.
Absolutely.
Yes. And
It
this
just
is
isn't, there's
amazing.
something quite magical about books, and that people do, like you said, we don't really house other kinds of written content.
Yeah.
But most of it can't be housed because it's electronic content. So how do you house it? And there's so much of it. I think as human beings, we're designed to see abundance as something that's, well, it's cheap and it's always there, and we don't really pay attention to it. Whereas something that is finite, we kind of look after and go, oh, this is good, this is precious. I mean, if you look at diamonds, I don't even think diamonds are all that pretty. I much prefer like a ruby or a sapphire, to be honest. Diamonds are pretty boring in my eyes. And yet, because they're so rare, they're worth more. So it's just how human beings, the psychology of how our brains are made up. We just do that. And the thing with especially physical books is that you have a finite amount of space in your home to house them. So if you've either bought a book or someone's given you a book, you're going to stick it on your shelf. And even if it takes you a year to read, it's always going to be there as a constant reminder of why you bought it or who gave it to you. I've got examples where I've sent a book out to potential clients, and they became a client a year later. And one of the things they would say to me is, I kept looking at your book. Every time I looked at your bookshelf, your book was staring at me. I'm just thinking, I need to give Mitali a call. I need to write my book with her. So, I mean, there's no way a LinkedIn post or a blog post would have that longevity.
Yeah, agree. Yeah.
Happen. So, yeah, it's very powerful.
I agree with you. Yes. Well, and with this being said, let's step back a little bit in the history. And actually, I want to know as well, I'm sure everyone else, how you got to this point, how you actually, first of all, let's start from how you become vegan.
Right. Okay. Well, I wish I can show you, but I think she's asleep at the moment. So my family acquired a lovely little stray cat in 2009. I'll be honest with you, Avrora, I didn't even want a cat. I just like, I know I love animals, but I don't want animals in my house. They're just going to be fur everywhere. It's going to be smelly and noisy.
Yeah.
I don't want this, because I grew up in a typical Indian household, and that we didn't really have pets. So I had no, so there was no sort of concept of having a family dog. We didn't, that was a very British concept. It's not a very Indian concept. So I didn't grow up with any animals, and I really, really wasn't sure about having this cat in my household. But my little sister, who was at school at the time, she kind of just begged me and her mother, and then finally relented, and we went to the rescue shelter and got her a cat. And within a few weeks, I was just amazed at the level of sentience this little being had. She's very, very aware. She became very aware of the different personalities in the household. She knew which member of the family needed her most that day and who was doing fine. She'd know who had a bad day at work, who'd had a bad day at school. And I was just like, I just had no idea. We're kind of led to believe that animals are these dumb things. They don't really know what's going on, and that allows us to do what we're doing, because if they're dumb and they don't really know what's going on, then we can eat them, we can test on them, we can do horrible things to them because they don't really know what they're doing.
With this being said, no one actually eats the cats, thanks God. Right?
Well, in this country, no, but you have to remember, in parts of Southeast Asia and in China, parts of Korea, they do eat cat. I think that's another topic, when people get really upset in the UK, especially, when they get upset when they hear about, another nationality is eating dog or cat, and then they're eating pig or cow. Yeah. Somehow that's okay. It's like, you do realize that's kind of like a form of racism. What you're saying is the animals that you eat are wrong, but the animals that I eat is okay. I'm like, I don't know what else to call that, but really.
Yeah, so I agree with you.
That people don't take that very kindly when I point that out to them, but there you go. It's the truth. But yeah, I realized just watching this cat, Isha, she's called, that, I was a bit I was the dumb one. I was the stupid one. It's like, I just believed what I heard, that animals don't really know what's going on. And then the horrifying realization that cats are not even in the top 20 of intelligent animals. We eat the 5th most intelligent animal, pigs, which are actually more intelligent than dogs. So I just thought, I can't do this, you know. And then the more I looked into it, the more I realized it isn't just the meat industry. I realized that if I was reincarnated as a cow, I'd actually much prefer to come back as a beef cow, because at least after 9 months, my ordeal is done and I'm dead and I can no longer feel anything. A dairy cow goes through the horror of giving birth 6, 7, 8 times in a lifetime and then killed. That's far worse.
Yeah.
So that realization that I couldn't even be vegetarian was like, oh God, I have to do the whole thing. So it took about, I would say, 2 years, just over 2 years. Again, I tried to do these stupid things that we all do. I'm sure we've all been through that journey where you make things okay. So I first did the whole, I'll only buy meat and eggs and dairy from ethical farms or organic farms. And you go down that route, and then you kind of realize that's like having ethical racism or ethical sexism. It's like a oxymoron, really, isn't it? So it took about 2 years until I finally just went, I had to live my truth. And very interesting, you know, what you talked about in one of your podcasts about, you know, living your life's purpose and living your truth. And you equated that to Dharma, which is a Sanskrit Indian principle. And yeah, I guess I found my Dharma 2 years in. It was around about 2012. And I just thought, nothing can taste as good as what it feels like to live in your life's purpose. And I haven't looked back since. And now I don't even like the thought of having meat or even in my mouth. It's been a decade now, so I don't even think I even remember what it tastes like, apart from the fact that I just don't want it in my mouth. But yeah, it's been a journey. It's definitely been a journey.
Yeah, it's interesting. The topic I actually discovered a couple of last weeks with some non-vegan friends, that a lot of the time they like try something vegan and they say to me, oh, it tastes just like a chicken. You're gonna love it. Try it. And I'm like, guys, I don't want to be too straight to the point, but if it tastes and look like a chicken, and if it's not chicken, it doesn't mean I'm gonna like it. So being vegan fully, like really living the purpose of plant-based diet is like when you don't really want to replace the meat with something, with something that tastes or appear the same way, even though no one is killed for that. So it's really interesting that you mentioned that as well. Like you don't really like can imagine yourself eating the chicken, and then I know that it's the steps. It's not like I was born this way. Of course, when I just became vegan, I was trying all those fake meats and sausages and things that we have nowadays, which is amazing if you are trying to kind of switch up. But if you are fully get into the veganism as the spiritual side of that, I think you really don't look into replace with something that our taste, look, or smell like real animal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it took me, I still do it every so often when I'm going out with friends and we've gone to a place, and unfortunately a lot of places in the UK that have a few vegan offerings on their menu, the big thing is they always have a vegan burger, which is always using something like Impossible Burger or beer. So I still do, or when I'm hungry I need to eat it. But you know, a lot of the times now I've noticed I will opt for something that's just vegan for the sake of it and not really needing to replace it, because I guess it's kind of I'm lucky because I come from an Indian background. We've always been a nationality that's been able to make vegetables taste amazing anyway. You know, a lot of people in India are accidentally vegetarian and sometimes vegan for many weeks without even calling themselves vegan. It's just how it is. Whereas the UK, the West in general, I think, is more focused around animal products. So therefore it is difficult when you become vegan. I'm glad there are these, you know, products available now, which certainly there weren't many when I went vegan in 2012. It was 10 years ago. It was a very, very different landscape. I
Yeah.
don't know what it
Yeah.
was like, you know, in Hawaii, I couldn't tell you, but in the UK, very different landscape to what it is now.
Well, I don't eat from 9 years old, so I can imagine how
Wow, you were well ahead. You were well
yeah,
ahead.
and I was born and raised in Ukraine, whereas the meat eaters is just like a standard. I was considered
Yeah,
like unhealthy and unnormal child that are not gonna grow well. But
yeah.
hopefully now people who follow me from my childhood can see that I'm not only well, I'm actually a vegan bodybuilder. So
You
I
are. I
don't
love that
die.
as well. I think that's the really, I think that is, we've seen the rise of that, I would say, in the last 3 to 4 years, the rise of female and male vegan bodybuilders, which I think is fantastic. Because you guys are really kind of at the forefront of dispelling that stupid myth that, you know, where do vegans get their protein from? Like we're just these skinny little things that are just going to blow over at the nearest bit of wind that goes past. It's like,
Yeah.
no, that really, really isn't the case. So, you know, well done for doing what you do. I've got a number of male bodybuilding friends who are vegan. Jeff Palmer, who I don't know if you know,
Mhm.
and Corinne Sutton, and these amazing men are doing incredible things, because especially from a male point of view, there's still more female vegans than there are male vegans, because there's
Mhm.
still this ridiculous belief. It's not their fault, they've been brainwashed by animal agriculture, but there's still this belief that, you know, to be manly and to have muscles, you need protein, and the only way to get protein is through red meat,
Yeah, I know.
without any understanding of like, about how does the animal get meat? I mean, sorry,
Mhm.
how does the animal get protein? Oh, they
Mhm.
get it from plants. So that means you can get it from plants too. I mean, when you think it through logically, you realize actually, you know, animals also need protein. They don't just create protein. Because if
Yeah.
cows could create protein, then why aren't we? We should
Yeah.
be able to, you know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
well, if we can't create it, they can't create, which means they're getting it from plants. So
Mhm.
why do we have to get it from them when they're getting it from plants? But even I didn't think of that until people started to, vegans that I met started to confront me with some of my beliefs. And I
Mhm.
realized those beliefs are not my beliefs. They've been drip fed into me ever since I was a child.
Yeah, that's
So I
so
think they're my
interesting.
beliefs, but they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. So how you actually become a publisher? So you switched to the vegan diet, like what you was doing at that time and how the idea to become a publisher and write the book is came to your mind.
Well, they didn't, not at the same time. So I became a vegan in 2012. I didn't actually become a publisher till 2019. So there's a big difference there. There's 7 years. So what I was doing at the time was I was a copywriter and ghostwriter. So I wrote sales, landing pages, emails, print adverts, online adverts, and books as a ghostwriter for lots of different kind of businesses. Nothing to do with veganism or the plant-based
Mhm.
world or ethics or anything like that. I think it's, you'll know yourself, it's a journey that you go through when you're a vegan. The first step is kind of, you know, that realization. I call it like, you know, when you have the red pill in Matrix and you suddenly wake up and say, oh God, what have I been doing? You know, so then you go down this whole, I'm not going to do anything. And you can be happy in that space for many years. I was, as long as I wasn't contributing to the torture and the pain and the murder, then that was okay. But then the longer you stay in that, you realize, hang on, how is that good enough? If, I mean, think about it. If there was, if you were driving somewhere and out of your window, you see a woman that's about to be sexually assaulted, do you just keep driving and go, well, I'm not assaulting her, so it's okay? So of
Yeah.
course you don't. You either stop, or at the very least you call the police, or you do something. So at some point you realize just abstaining from hurting animals, and you have to remember there's a human element as well. You know, if you look at where these major factory farms are in the UK and also in the US, they're usually right next to communities of color, communities that are disadvantaged. Do you know what I mean? So there's a human cost. It's not just animal life that's affected,
Mhm.
it's human life that's affected as well. And you suddenly realize that just you not contributing to it is not enough. Just in the same way that you just driving past a woman about to be assaulted and you just saying, well, I'm not doing it, so it's okay, is not good enough. It's, you have to do something. So that's when I realized I wanted to get more involved with the movement and actually do something to stop it, as opposed to just not contributing to it. So I started to think of different ways of doing it. And I know there's a lot of ethical businesses out there, they could do with, a writer like me. So I started to write content for a number of plant-based, vegan, ethical entrepreneurs. But again, I felt my impact was still too small. By that time, I really wanted to make a bigger impact. And I realized in 2019, I wrote my last book as a ghostwriter, and it took me only 6 weeks to create. The first book took me 17 months. So you can see the difference. And I just thought, I've got a system now. What if I can teach people my system? And then that way, more people can write books. So that was like the genesis of becoming a publisher. It was realizing that if I do it for people, I'll probably only write maybe 3 or 4 books in a year at a push. That's 3 or 4 vegan or plant-based or ethical entrepreneurs who have now got more visibility and more authority and having a bigger impact in the world. But if I teach people to write their own books, that's more thought leaders, that was my thinking. And it's worked. Like, since then, I've published 18 authors. There's no way in the last under 3 years, I would have written 18 books myself. I need to sleep. I need to have a life, so it just wouldn't have happened. So that's more people out there right now on podcasts, on stages, on TV shows, on radio shows, furthering our movement and talking about what needs to be done than there would be if I was doing it myself. So that was the idea behind it. It was the idea of how do I, in the quickest time possible, create my army. I want to create an army of ethical vegan entrepreneurs who are published authors, and they just have huge visibility and they're everywhere, just getting a ton of media attention, and they're furthering the cause. And the answer was help people write and publish their own books, as opposed to me doing it for them.
It's awesome. Yes, I love that idea. It's like me trying to teach people how to be plant-based and do it right for their health as a nutritionist. And I felt like that's my passion. That's what I want to do. Not just talking to people and saying, yeah, I am vegan, I am a freak from 9 years old, because that's what they think about me when I say them eat meat from 9 years old, right? But I also say, but you know what? I can help you to figure out how to do it on your own. And I can explain you, not only because I would be honest, first, and about 90% of the people who are meat and who come to me as a nutritionist are looking to switch to the plant-based diet from their health perspective. Yes. So they have a health problem. So when you drive in this car, as I love your example, and you see some woman being raped and you are kind of like, I'm okay. Actually, you're going to be raped just in a couple of years, and you never know when it's going to start it if you are keep eating animals products. That's what it is nowadays. Because again, time goes and things are changing in the world. And if you ask me 20 years ago, I would maybe not going to say that. But for today, if we're talking especially about America and UK, meat products, dairy products are so harming for your health, unfortunately.
Yes.
They are, even if you buy organic meats and organic eggs, you just lying to yourself, and you are putting a garbage in your body that's actually, in the end of all of this, give you something back, something bad back, not good. So yeah, I felt exactly the same as you. So I totally know what you're doing, and this has inspired me to share what you do to many people.
Oh,
so
thank you.
Can you tell if someone like me or whatever, whoever listened to us, I'm sure a lot of people want to write the book. So what are those steps that you are like help them to go through, and how this can look like for someone who want to work with you?
Okay, well, the first step is actually the most important step, and that is figuring out what you're going to do with the book. So there's some people, quite a lot of people, sadly, there's this belief that if you just put a really good book out there, that in itself that's all you need. the world will just magically stop turning and everyone will look at you and you'll be famous. And then it's like, yeah, that doesn't work, unfortunately. I wish that was the case, but that doesn't work. I've seen some fantastic books just sat on Amazon, no one's paying them any attention. And I've seen some mediocre books doing incredibly well for their authors, because the author is just out there talking about them all the time, So for that reason, the main step I would say is think about what you want the book to do for you. Okay. So I always advise all of my clients are writing a book either in the field that they're already in, or they're looking to pivot into a new field and, maybe create a new business in that. But specifically, it is one or the other. Now, the reason why is if you're going to write about something, say, for example, you came to me and you want to write about something that's completely different to what you're doing right now. Say you just want to write about vegan ethics, nothing to do with your business. You're going to end up spending a lot of time and energy and some money with me to create a professional book. And then what?
Yeah.
If you think about it, if you're just going to sell your book, you have to sell an awful lot of books just to make your money back. Because think about how much you can spend on a book, how much you can charge for a book. For a paperback, and most people grumble after more than $10, maybe up to $15. Anything more than that, they're not happy. Electronic downloads, even less. You struggle to get more than $5 because people get very upset. It's a digital download. Why are you charging me so much money? So you're now in a high volume business. You have to sell literally thousands and thousands and thousands of units just to make your money back and then make a healthy profit. Whereas if your book is to do with either what you're currently doing, or if you're wanting to pivot into a new business, the money is in the back end. So for example, I've made, I think, less than $8,000 in my book in the last 2 years. However, I've made over 6 figures from people reading my book and becoming my clients. That's where the money is, not the book. I'm not really bothered. In fact, all the money that I make for the book goes to charity anyway, to an animal charity here in the UK. So I'm not even interested in making money from my book. Can you see the difference? And that, I would say, is the first key thing to look at. What is the book going to be about? Because it needs to be about what you're doing or what you're going to be doing. If it's a completely separate thing, I'm not telling you not to do it. If you really, really have a burning desire to write a book on some other subject, go and do it, but do it with your eyes wide open. Be aware that you're going to spend a lot of money self-publishing, and it may take you several years to make that money back. And you should be okay with that and see it as like, yes, but I just need to do it. And then that's cool. But go into it with your eyes wide open. The next step I would say is meticulous planning. And there's one word that is the best word to describe it, is mind map. Mind map your book out. There's great software online where you can literally mind map your book out. The software that my clients use is a free software called mind42.com. So it's mind and then the numbers 42.com. And you can make really intricate mind maps. My clients will map out their entire book. And when I say map out, I mean, I will not even allow them to start writing their book unless I see at least 300 elements on their mind map. Ideally 400 or more, but at least 300 elements. And when you mind map your book out to such an extent, it means you bypass all the typical issues that most new authors have, which is they lose their train of thought. They start adding new ideas in and then it doesn't fit with previous ideas. Now they need to rewrite other things. They get lost in their book and they go, oh, I don't know how to end it now. This all comes from not mind mapping your book. All those people did, bless them, because they don't know, is they just created a rough idea of what's going to go into each chapter and they started writing. You should be, every single idea, thought should already be mind mapped out before you even start writing. If you do it that way, you literally can't get lost in your book. You can't lose your train of thought because you've done all the thinking already. Now you're just doing the writing. I would say most of my clients, once they mind map their book out, takes them about 1 to 2 weeks to write the first draft of their book. And they can't believe it. They're writing 35, 40,000 words. And they say to me, Mitali, I can't believe I've written a book in 10 days. So that's because you spent 5 weeks mind mapping everything out. they're like, oh my God, it's just such an easy way to write a book, isn't it? It's like, yes, that's what I'm trying to teach the world. There is a very easy way of writing a book, and people don't know about it. They're writing a book the way they read a book. That's what I've realized, Avrora. They're writing a book in the same way they read the book. It's like, no, you don't write a book from beginning to end in the way that you read a book. That's not a sensible way to write a book.
Wow, that's amazing. And then I'm glad you share this free platform so someone can look, and even I gonna go and look, because I actually, like, no one has ever heard that, but I was trying to write my book, but I stuck because I was feeling overwhelmed. Like, I was feeling like I don't know how to put those things in order that I have in mind. So that's amazing source. And
so
I'm glad to
you've
share
fallen
it.
for the same trap. It's all that, and then I bet new ideas were popping in. You're like, oh, this is a good idea, but how does this fit in with that bit? And it's like a horrible jigsaw piece that you can't put together.
Yeah.
And that's when people
exactly.
get very overwhelmed. Whereas if you
Yeah.
mind map your book at first, that just won't happen.
Yeah. So I love that you share with us how you actually have this system to help anyone to pursue any type of book, which is amazing. But I want to also ask you, like, when you write your first book, how you figured out how to put it, as you said, in the world and make attention to that. Because we now know how to write the book and we can, but how to actually pay attention to your book and how you find out that for yourself.
Well, when I wrote my first book as an author, The Freedom Master Plan, that came out, the first edition came out in 2020. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it was a good book to write because my book is all about case studies of some of my previous clients and what they did with their book. So the whole book, I would say, if you don't know how to get visibility for your book, if you don't know how to leverage a book for your business, your brand, your nonprofit, your charity, whatever it is that you've got, and you want more eyeballs on what you're doing, read my book, The Freedom Master Plan, because that's literally what the book is about. It's all case study based of all some of my clients and exactly what they did with their book next. Because it's true, what you do with your book is almost more important than what's inside the book. I said before that, I've seen some really good books doing nothing for their authors simply because the author either doesn't know how to leverage the book properly or they're too lazy and they don't want to. And then I've seen some mediocre books. They're not really all that good, but the author's doing incredible things with that book. They really believe in it and they're really leveraging it. So when I wrote my book, The Freedom Master Plan, it was great because by writing my book, I'd learned exactly what some of my clients had done to
Wow.
build that visibility around. So I just copied what they did. It was everything in my book. And it's quite interesting because now I even have people, I have people on social media, on my email list, and some of my clients as well. I will do something, they'll be like, oh, you're doing that thing in the Freedom Master Plan, you're doing that now, aren't you? You're implementing. They'll say that. So at the moment I'm putting together a membership program to help people sort of regularly write. I'm looking to launch it in November. And as soon as I started telling people that, I had so many emails like, oh, you're doing one of the passive income assets in the Freedom Master Plan, aren't you? It's like, well, yes, I wrote it. So I feel like I should implement what's in my book. Otherwise, I'd be a hypocrite, wouldn't I? But yeah, I'm still in the process. I still haven't implemented all the things. There's still so much good advice in my book that even I haven't implemented yet. It's to come. It's 2023, 2024, 2025. I've still got several years of implementation to go on. But yeah, it is all about getting the book out there. And that book will go through specific steps on how to use your book to get media attention and get journalists' attention, how to use your book to sort of almost have all of your social media done for you. And what I tend to find with a lot of my clients is once they've written a book, they've accumulated all this knowledge and put it into a book. They just kind of go, oh, so all my social media posts, I just need to pull things from my book, don't I? It's like, yeah, that's all you do. You can even hire a cheap virtual assistant somewhere and you can just get them to go through the book and disseminate it into lots of long form, short form posts. You can even hire a designer to create some nice images to go into Instagram with quotes. There's so many things you can do. You have so much content in your book, why would you not disseminate it as social media content as well? So it's just, I mean, I'll be here for hours if I went through everything in the book. There's so many different strategies. But yeah, I would urge anybody, if you've got a business, brand, a non-profit or charity, and you're just kind of on the fence, you're thinking, I quite like the idea of writing a book, but I don't really know what the hell to do with it once I've got it. Like, how do I get journalists to pay me attention? How do I get to do social media for me? How do I get it to attract the best clients or the best sponsors or the best donors? How do I do it? Go and read my book and you'll get all of these real life case studies of my clients and what they did next with their book.
That's amazing answer, because I was actually about to ask the second question, like what your book about. So you kind of answer them both. That's great. And where people can find your book right now? Amazon?
Yes, Amazon is where it's at now. I'm going to upload it to a new program, a new platform, I should say, called Ingram Spark, because I've had a couple of bookstore owners in the UK contact me, because I've got that kind of visibility now. And I've been in a number of national magazines. So now there's like bookstore owners saying, hey, we want to feature it in our stores, and they won't go. Bookstore owners, by the way, never go and buy from Amazon, because Amazon is B2C, as in business to customer. So bookstore owners go to a specific platform called Ingram Spark. So I'll be uploading my books there. So it should be available in bookstores as well. But the best place and the cheapest place to get it is just go to Amazon.
Nice. Okay. And I will definitely add all the links in description below, guys, so you can see and then buy it. I'm sure it's an amazing book. I still didn't read it yet, but I will for sure, because I plan to write my book, right? So I definitely need to know how to promote that book. So I will do my work.
You'd be amazed. You'll love it, because especially I've been looking at what you do and how you inspire people, and there's so many ways you can use a book. In fact, too many ways. I'm pretty sure you'll be like me, where you'll read my book and then be implementing things for 5 years from now, you know, because there's so many great ideas that you just can't implement everything together. You gotta, you know, that old saying, you gotta walk before you can run. So I'm still implementing things. I've only implemented maybe a third of what's in my book.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I want to also know, like, is any of your books are also about animal rights or about veganism, like specifically on those topics, because you write more than one, and maybe you have your favorite book that you like to recommend everyone to read?
Oh gosh, I don't know. God, asking me to choose between my authors is like asking me to choose between my children. It's like, I can't do that.
Yeah, every book is like a child, right?
Yeah, it is. You know, and my authors, like, I'm proud of every single one of them. When, you know, my latest one, Sandra, she's doing incredibly well with the book. She's just had a full page spread on Veg Economist, which is one of the leading vegan publications in the UK. She's doing incredible things, and I'm so proud. But I'm proud of every single author of mine, because I mean, the reason why I'm the vegan publisher is I specifically work with people who are really trying to leave the world a better place than they found it. Now, that could be through animal rights, that could be through climate change and wanting to protect the environment, that could be through social responsibility, corporate responsibility. There's lots of different things that not all of them are specifically to do with veganism. For example, a wonderful author of mine, Amanda Redmond, she's vegan, but her book has got nothing to do with veganism. It's all about empowering women to get paid equally as men, because we're still in the UK not being paid equally to men, and how to position yourself and how to get that equality. Very powerful stuff. I mean, I don't know if you know, but in the UK, the average woman is retiring with a fifth of the pension part that the average man is.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that.
It's crazy. Now, that's okay if you're still married to the same guy, but if you've divorced him, you're screwed. You know, you're now having a lot less. Your finances are so tiny compared to your ex-husband. So it's, you know, it's not always to do with veganism, but it's to do with social injustice. And because I'm a big believer that veganism isn't just about just animal lives, it's looking at injustice everywhere and exploitation everywhere. So I'm a big advocate for women not being exploited, because we are still exploited compared to men. We do work just as much, if not more than men, and then get paid less, which is not fair. I'm an advocate against exploitation of ethnic minorities. All of these things, to me, come under veganism. Veganism isn't, it's looking after all life and protecting all life from exploitation. So anybody that's doing any kind of good that is trying to get rid of some kind of exploitation and want to write a book, I'm like, come to me. I will help you, not a problem. So I would say go to Amazon. You can put in my publishing imprint is called Let's Tell You Story Publishing. If you just put in Amazon, Let's Tell You Story Publishing, you'll see all of my authors. And that way you can pick the book that resonates the most to you. So if it's animals, there's books on animals. If it's social injustice, if it's finance, if it's personal health, the books are there. You can pick one and go and get that one.
Wow, that's great. I am so inspired by what you said. I never quite a bit, look at the veganism from that perspective, but I think you're absolutely right, because I have a lot of discussions with Black people about Black Lives Matter protests, with other a small culture that feel like they are pushed. I being immigrant from other country, and what's going on in Ukraine right now, and how we have this crazy war is also related to my style of living. And that's, you have to have a strong beliefs in order to try to live your life in not the same way as everyone do. And you have to be a strong believer, and you have to be brave enough to get out there, and don't be scared to actually not only say your thoughts and be the voice, but as you do, be the voice for others. This is so inspiring. Thank you so much for doing this, and thank you for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and my next question was about, like, what struggle you faced during this amazing switch of your career. Maybe something you can share, because I'm sure everyone out there want to do what they feel like want to do. Just like we talked with you before, want to live their dharma, right? Their life purpose. They maybe feel like, I want to do that too. I want to do what I like, but I feel I'm gonna face some struggles. So what are maybe, those struggles that you face, and how you overcome those?
The main struggle for me is, I always say that if you're a ghostwriter or a copywriter, there's a reason why you chose that profession, because you don't want the limelight. You actually like writing things and giving them to other people and just getting paid, and not having to deal with the publicity and that kind of stuff. So when I became a publisher and I realized, I need to become the face of my brand, I need to get comfortable doing things like this, podcasts, and speaking on stage. I'm speaking at Veg Fest London in a few weeks' time, and I'm speaking 3 times over the weekend. And, just literally 2 years ago, I would never have spoken in front of anybody. I wasn't interested in that. It's not, even this would be traumatic. Just speaking like this with you would be something that I wouldn't be comfortable with. The reason I was able to do and what I am doing right now is that realization that what you said before about dharma, when you really find your dharma, when you really find your mission and your purpose, you realize that mission and purpose is bigger than you, and you're actually being selfish, getting in the way of your purpose. And that's kind of what made me get over it. So I start to do things to take steps to get comfortable. So I remember this is in September 2020. So 2 years ago, almost exactly 2 years ago, I decided to force myself to do 5 lives a week on Facebook. Even if nobody joined, I didn't care. I'm just going to talk to myself for 5 minutes every single day, Monday to Friday. And I did. Most of the time, no one joined me because no one knew who I was, but it didn't matter. Just to get used to being, having something public that's going out there, and getting used to seeing my face on camera and just talking. I just forced myself, and I did that for 5 months. So 5 days a week for 5 months, I did that. To the stage that I started to get really comfortable. Then I started accepting a few podcasts. just from really small podcasts. They only had like, you know, maybe 20 downloads a week, and that's it. But that was enough for me to start, you know, getting used to someone asking the questions. Because one thing doing a live yourself, you know what you're going to ask yourself, you know what you're going to say. But, you know, when somebody's questioning it, you have to kind of think a little bit on your feet. So I started getting used to that. And then I just worked my way up. And then this time last year, I spoke in front of 500 people, which I never would have done before. But within a year, I'd gone from never speaking in front of anybody to speaking live in front of 500 people. Not because I wanted it for myself, but the realization that I had to get out of my own way, because the mission, what I'm trying to do to save humans, to save more animals, is bigger than me and my stupid little pride and my fear and all those things. So I would say if something's holding you back, I mean, definitely anyone who's listening to you, Avrora, they're going to be compassionate people who really care about animals, the environment, other human beings. Instead of telling yourself you can't do this, you should be saying, can you afford not to do this? Because the world needs you, really, and needs your voice. So you kind of have to get over yourself.
Yeah, well, that's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing this. I couldn't imagine you was shy. You seems to be really open, a good speaker right now to me.
Lots of people say that. They're just like, you look like you were born to do this. It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to show you my very first live. Honestly, Avrora, the very first live I did 2 years ago, I was so scared, even though no one's going to join me because no one knew who I was just literally going live. I was so scared of just looking at the camera like this directly. I was so scared that I went for a walk at the local park, because I thought, if I'm walking and speaking, if anyone does join me, they won't expect me to look in the camera all the time, because otherwise I'll walk into a lamppost or a tree. So I was basically, I can look away and just glance, and then look away and then glance. That's all I could cope with. No one even joined me. That's how scared I was. So this is proof that you can get over whatever is holding you back and making you think you can't do this, you're not good enough. I'm proof. And by the way, if any of your listeners, you know, want to actually see that live, if they just tell them to send a note to you, and I'll send you the picture live, and you can send
of course.
You can
Send it to me.
How terrified I was just 2 years ago, 2 short years ago.
Wow, we're gonna add it into the description below, guys, so you can find it. But I absolutely know what you feel like, because it's so funny, because I am a professional actress and I don't have any problem to speak in public, but I was a professional actress in Ukrainian language. I know Ukrainian and Russian, and it wasn't a problem for me. I moved to America 8 years ago with zero English. And I was struggle with speaking, first of all, at all in English, but then overcome the fear of being judged by your accent and your grammar, your mistakes that you may make because you're not, you know, professional English speaker. And one of those crazy challenges for me is when I realized that I want to have a podcast, because this is a great platform for a lot of people, because I listen to podcasts and I know that people not really see me, only hear, and I have a huge problem with my English and in accent. And then I did the same thing. I just started. I pushed myself to do it. I was like, no, but I know that the people listen to podcasts, and I know if I'm gonna, you know, hold myself from not doing this, I just gonna be, you know, I just gonna be not truth to myself and to the things I have to do.
Think of how many fewer people you'll be able to impact, Avrora. You've got an important message, you know, telling people that they're putting poison into their body, you know, by having animal products. More people need to hear that, and podcasts are a great way to get that message out. So it's all about, you know, putting your ego and your fear and all that to one side. It's not solving it, because a lot of people say, well, how do I get rid of it? It's like, it's not even getting rid of it. I still have imposter syndrome, but I've just put it to one side because I realized the mission is bigger than
more
me.
Important. Yeah. The
you
same
know,
thing.
It's not even getting rid of it. It's all still there. I've got it all in a suitcase waiting for me one day. But I've just decided I'm not going to deal with it now, because what I'm doing, the movement, the vegan movement, it needs me and you and people like us more than our ego and our fear and all that kind of stuff. That just needs to be put in a suitcase and left for later.
Yeah, this is amazing words. I want to point on those guys who listen and then something hold you back from doing that you think you should do. Really do it. Don't hold back. And I have a last question that I ask everyone on my podcast. I feel like I want to talk to you forever, but we have some
Oh,
timeline.
thank you.
Yeah, we have some timeline that we need to follow on. So the last one is going to be what you would do if you know it's going to be your last day on this earth.
Oh my gosh, the last day on earth. Well, what I would do, this is going to sound so boring. I want to say something like, I'll just go and sit, on a coast or something like that. But my fear would be that the vegan publisher would wind up. So what I would do is actually, I know exactly who I would hand over the business to. I would show them exactly what needs to be done so the vegan publisher carries on. Because the vegan publisher is bigger than me, even though I set it up, because I'm vegan and I'm the publisher. But what it needs to do in creating that army of ethical thought leaders, that needs to carry on even if I'm dead. So I know it sounds boring, but I'll probably spend the whole day working and making sure the business will carry on without me, so it carries on creating thought leaders for the future.
Does not sound boring. It sounds amazing. It means you love what you do so truly that even in your last day, you will keep doing the same thing. I think it's amazing.
It needs to go on, someone's got to do it if I don't do it, so it has to go on.
It's amazing. Okay. And they have a small game that they play with everyone in the end. So I'm going to say two things and you should choose one. Okay.
Okay.
Coffee or tea?
Oh, tea.
Black or purple?
Purple.
Gym or outdoor?
Outdoor.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Juice or smoothie?
Juice.
Wine or water?
Water.
Chocolate or sweet cream?
Oh, chocolate.
Kiss or hug?
What was the first one?
Kiss or hug?
Peas.
Kiss.
Oh, kiss or hug. Oh, hug.
Okay. Love or sex?
Love.
Okay, that was it. That was a short.
Well, for me, it can be the same thing sometimes, I would think. So
yeah, I know, but that's the tricky part. And then it's just the tricky part to know you better, but I'm sure people want to know you better. So if anyone want to go and follow you and see what more you're going to create, how they can find you.
Well, my website is The Vegan Publisher. It's quite simple. So just go and find me as The Vegan Publisher. And you can find me on all social media as @Vegan Publisher. So I'm very, very easy to find. If you just put Vegan Publisher Mitali, like I said, don't bother with the surname because you'll spend loads of time trying to type it out and it's just not interesting. But if you just put Mitali Vegan Publisher, you'll find me everywhere. And get in touch, get in touch with book ideas. Even if you have a book idea that doesn't fit, I've already said that I mainly work with experts, entrepreneurs, people who have a brand or a non-profit or a business of some sort. If you've got a book idea that's got nothing to do with that, maybe a children's book or a poetry book, I won't be able to help you with it, but I know quite a lot of people in the publishing industry. So there may be somebody I can point you to that might be able to help you. So awesome. Get in touch with me with your book ideas.
Nice. Well, I'll definitely get in touch with you after this podcast, and I'm sure a lot of people do too. So thank you so much. All the links and the show notes going to be, guys, in the description down below. And I really appreciate you finding time for us today. Thank you so much, Melanie, for all you said. It's amazing. Thank you for inspiration. Thank you for being such an amazing author and such an amazing publisher. And I'm just waiting to read all the books you already published. And I'm ready to see new ones as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye, guys.